Society as a social phenomenon is the result of the joint activity and coexistence of groups of people in the name of the common good. It is necessary for the separate groups to be united around the achievement of a common goal, observing uniform rules of conduct and norms. Assessing the social, cultural, and ethnic characteristics of different groups in society, and in particular the marginalized, regional direction of Interior Veliko Târnovo together with its partners realized the need to develop and implement a more systematic and organized model for working with them. The demographic situation in our country, and in particular in Veliko Târnovo district, is characterized by a continuing decline and aging of the population. Imbalances are a result of the economic recession, low birth rates among groups with high social status, and huge birth rates among marginalized communities. The area is home to various Roma community groups. Typical crimes committed by this community are crimes against property, telephone fraud, pickpocketing, thefts, etc. Prevention is targeted at combating organized group crime, which characterizes part of the community and its way of life. Telephone frauds and pickpocketing come to the fore as the main organized groups of crimes. These are the most frequently committed crimes by an organized group of people and with the highest public response, because they usually affect the most vulnerable part of society, the elderly and the single people. Analyzing the criminogenic situation in Veliko Târnovo district in the period from 2016 to the present, it is clear that the main percentage of perpetrators are representatives of certain Roma families, who for years and generations have committed the above crimes in the country. Considering the nature of the crimes, they go beyond the borders of Veliko Târnovo district and naturally spread throughout the country. For a number of well-known reasons, members of some Roma families have directed their criminal activities in European countries. Typical is that the families include minors and under the age of majority. This is most strongly observed in the commission of pickpocketing, telephone fraud and begging, as the use of minors in this type of crime excludes the criminal liability of the perpetrators upon their detection. Conservatism and the closed type of Roma society create significant difficulties in working with it by outsiders and institutions. This is one of the reasons for low education and frequent early marriages among Roma. Through the work of state institutions, positive results have been achieved in limiting these phenomena. In this regard, in 2017, a decree of the Council of Ministers approved the Mechanism for Joint Work of Institutions for Coverage and Retention in the Educational System of Children and Students. Human behavior is formed from the earliest childhood. In early childhood, the psyche and knowledge of life are formed on the basis of the pattern of behavior that children have acquired in their family environment. The child perceives every behavior of adults in the family environment and unconsciously accepts it as true and correct. In most cases, it supports him in his later life. In this regard, the role of the 3 prevention centers is significant, as they work with adolescents of the territory served by the regional offices in the town of Veliko Târnovo, Pavlikeni and Elena. Centers for prevention and sports with the same focus operate in the capital city of Sofia and a few other towns in the country. Centers aim to engage children's free time and raise their awareness on a number of topics related to their daily lives and safety. In order to improve the interaction and communication with the Roma population, Amalipe Center for Inter-Ethnic Dialogue and Tolerance has been involved as a partner in the project. Together with representatives of Amalipe, trainings of local police officers are periodically held, as well as roundtables with the participation of the district governor and representatives of the municipalities from Veliko Târnovo district. Meetings with formal and informal Roma leaders are organized jointly with the Amalipe Center. The leaders are used as mediators in the event of group violations of public order and other offenses related to the Roma population. The project is developing, and in the current complicated anti-epidemic situation, some of the activities reach the target groups through online seminars. There is no deadline. The idea is to implement it and establish it as a national program. The community development centers are established by Amalipe in the municipalities and local clubs, with the respective women's, youth and leadership volunteer clubs in over 30 settlements. Over 600 volunteers work for the implementation of the activities of the organization. Thanks to the established network of clubs on the territory of Veliko Târnovo district and the work of the mediators in them, the police officers managed to establish effective communication with the Roma community. The conditions in which some ethnic groups live are a serious precondition for social disorganization. The Roma neighborhoods are an example of the combination in one place of a whole group of serious criminogenic factors. These are social isolation and marginalization in all their incarnations: unemployment, low incomes, poor education, lack of opportunities for young people to spend their free time. In such an environment, trust in all institutions is usually at a critically low level. Systematic information about the benefits of the inclusion of the Roma community, both by institutions and the media, helps to overcome the prejudice and negative attitudes of society towards the Roma and treat them rather as a potential for development than a problem of development of the Bulgarian state. By reducing the dropout rate and raising the educational status of the Roma, by applying innovative methods and practices on a local basis, the empowerment of Roma parents to actively participate in school life. The project activities are focused mainly in two directions: restriction and suppression of committing crimes, and prevention of illegal behavior and work on integration of marginalized communities. This is achieved through a number of activities aimed at increasing the confidence of these communities in state institutions and non-government organizations. Emphasis in the preventive work with marginalized societies are the activities related to the re-education of children. This creates a real precondition for problems in the professional realization of the future members of society and respectively low social and economic status. On the other hand, this is also a reason, especially in Roma communities, for the so-called early marriages. Such cohabitation of a person who has not reached the relevant generally accepted mental and psychical maturity necessary to create a normal, healthy family creates a real danger to the moral, mental and psychical health of the individual. Analyzing the features of marginalized societies in historical and purely ethnic aspect and problems with their integration into society, it was concluded that intervention of external specialists is needed to voluntarily moderate the attitudes and behavior of members of these clans, while at the same time aiming to preserve the Roma identity. Thus, two very important goals of social development are achieved. On the one hand, through the introduction of civic values, society acquires full-fledged citizens, and at the same time, a high degree of integration and trust in the state institutions and the law is achieved. On the occasion of prevention of criminal acts and stopping them before their commission, an organization for management of orders in the structural units of RDI Veliko Târnovo was established. It aims to ensure optimal deployment and proper use of forces and means of patrol activities, the necessary maneuverability, interception and detection of violations of public order and crimes. The RDI prepares interactive maps of crime for the territory of the region. In order to prevent, intercept and detect crimes related to the telephone fraud, in 2017 in RDI Veliko Târnovo, a counteraction of the telephone fraud group was formed. The team developed the following joint preventive measures, some of which have been worked on, some are currently being worked on, and others are identified as future activities. In June 2020, a workshop was held on intensification of hate crimes and cases of domestic violence among minority communities and in particular women in the district of Veliko Târnovo during COVID-19 pandemic. Police officers give lectures to school children under the national program The Police in the Schools. A number of activities have taken place on the territory of Veliko Târnovo in the last 5 years. The results of the project work are evaluated internally through an analysis of the results achieved over the years. According to the analysis of the statistical results, there is a clear downward trend in registered telephone fraud in the last 5 years. At the same time, the detection rate is steadily increasing. During the period under review, criminal liability was realized against 101 persons who committed telephone fraud in various complicities. Among these persons are detained organizers of criminal activity, the removal of whom leads to a long-term interruption of telephone fraud by marginalized groups. With regard to pickpocketing, a relative decline was observed during the period considered. The decrease in the number of registered pickpocketing thefts is due to effective preventive activities against the representatives of the marginalized groups. Preventing this type of crime leads to a reduction of financial losses, increases trust in institutions, and a sense of security in society. The benefit for public authorities is the saving of funds needed to investigate crimes prevented before they occur. The European dimensions of the project can be sought in solving problems similar to other member states. The attention of the partners should be focused on the development of a system of measures aimed at effective communication and close contact with these marginalized groups in order to increase trust in the institutions and achieve a correction in their behavior. It is necessary to make a detailed socio-cultural analysis of local marginalized communities in order to identify specific and adequate measures for inclusion and integration into society, taking into account their specific features. The project is developing, and in the current complicated anti-epidemic situation, some of the activities reach the target groups through online seminars. There is no deadline for completion of project activities. The idea is to implement it and establish it as a national program from which other EU member states could learn. Following European values, basic human rights, and the need to care for and integrate people from marginalized groups into the community, the Republic of Bulgaria, on the part of its institutions, launched the project Thinking About the Future, which is an investment in future generations.